What happened when an undercover CEO decided to step into the shoes of his own employees to uncover the truth? Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. You all are amazing for tuning in today. This time we're diving into the powerful story of Oliver Grant, a CEO who went undercover to expose the truth behind the failures of his flagship Riverside Recreation Center. From discovering toxic leadership to witnessing genuine kindness and resilience, Oliver's journey reveals how true leadership isn't about control, it's about empowering others. Stay with us to find out how Oliver's bold actions transformed an entire community for the better. Oliver Grant, the CEO of a popular community recreation center chain, sat at his desk, his eyes scanning a series of increasingly troubling reports. The flagship location, Riverside Recreation Center, once known for its welcoming environment and robust community programs, had been flooded with complaints. Reports described everything from poor customer service and high employee turnover to the blatant disregard for the center's mission of inclusivity and accessibility. More concerning were the accounts of Mark Peterson, the center's manager, dismissing complaints as exaggerations and discouraging employees from voicing their concerns. Riverside was meant to be a safe, welcoming space where families, children, seniors, and individuals from all walks of life could enjoy fitness programs, art classes, and social events. Instead, it was turning into a place of exclusion and frustration. Oliver had spent years building his recreation center chain from a single neighborhood facility into a network of thriving community hubs. With over 10 locations, he had delegated daily operations to trusted managers, believing they shared his vision of accessibility and service. But the recurring complaints made it clear that something was fundamentally broken at Riverside. Oliver's frustration mounted as he read through yet another report describing how a senior fitness class had been abruptly canceled due to neglected maintenance issues. The complaints weren't just about minor inconveniences, they were about a deep-rooted problem in how the center was managed. Determined to uncover the truth, Oliver decided to go undercover. Disguised as Evan, a new custodian, he would spend time working at Riverside to see firsthand what had gone wrong. Wearing faded jeans, an old hoodie, and a baseball cap pulled low over his brow, Oliver aimed to blend in with the staff and guests alike. If Riverside was truly failing its community, Oliver intended to fix it, from the inside out, no matter what it took. Oliver Grant arrived at Riverside Recreation Center the following morning, his disguise carefully assembled to ensure no one would recognize him as the CEO. Clad in faded jeans, a wrinkled hoodie, and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, he looked every bit the part of a desperate man looking for any job he could get. Introducing himself as Evan, he approached the front desk where a tired-looking maintenance supervisor named Kevin Brooks sat shuffling through papers. Kevin's expression was one of perpetual irritation, his shoulders hunched as if bracing against the weight of constant frustration. "You the new guy?" Kevin grunted without looking up. "We need hands, so you're hired. Just keep the place clean and stay out of the way." With that, he handed Oliver a mop and a stained uniform shirt, his tone making it clear there would be no proper training. Oliver nodded, keeping his expression neutral as he accepted the gear. He was shuffled off to clean the gym area with only the vaguest instructions. It was clear the center was running on autopilot, the staff scrambling to keep up with the demands of the day without any real guidance or support. Oliver spent his first few hours mopping floors, wiping down equipment, and sweeping the basketball court. As he worked, he observed the way the center operated. The facilities were in rough shape, clogged showers, broken gym equipment, and a pool area that hadn't been properly cleaned in days. The patrons were patient but clearly frustrated, their complaints met with shrugs or dismissals from Kevin whenever they managed to reach him. Oliver quickly realized the staff were stretched far too thin, their energy drained by constant neglect and lack of leadership. Kevin seemed content to leave Oliver to his tasks without any guidance, preferring to handle issues by ignoring them or passing them off to others. During a brief break, Oliver saw Sarah Jennings, the receptionist, juggling a long line of visitors with grace and efficiency. She handled membership renewals, class registrations, and general inquiries all at once, her voice never losing its warmth, even when customers grew impatient. Her dedication stood out starkly against the indifference Oliver had seen from Kevin and other supervisors. As Oliver continued his cleaning duties, he made it a point to stay within earshot of Sarah's interactions. noting how she navigated difficult situations with compassion and professionalism. From his observations alone, Oliver could tell Sarah was a valuable employee, trying to keep things running smoothly despite overwhelming challenges. His curiosity grew as he continued his shift, his focus shifting from simply cleaning to understanding the center's deeper issues. It didn't take long for Oliver to realize that Riverside Recreation Center was a place where leadership had failed its people, and if he wanted to fix it, he would have to uncover just how deep the rot went. As Oliver continued his cleaning duties throughout the Riverside Recreation Center, he couldn't help but notice Sarah Jennings, the receptionist who seemed to be holding the entire operation together. Positioned behind the front desk, Sarah's cheerful voice greeted every visitor with genuine warmth, her smile unwavering even during the busiest hours. Whether she was handling membership renewals, scheduling fitness classes, or simply offering directions to newcomers, Sarah displayed a level of dedication Oliver rarely saw in frontline employees. Her kindness extended beyond formal responsibilities. She took time to engage with the guests, especially those who seemed lost or overwhelmed. On one occasion, a single mother arrived with her 2 young children, apologetically explaining that she couldn't afford the membership renewal, but desperately wanted her kids to continue their swimming lessons. Without hesitation, Sarah discreetly handed her a guest pass, whispering with a smile, "It's on me this time. Just make sure they enjoy the pool, okay?" Oliver watched as the woman's eyes filled with gratitude, her shoulders relaxing as Sarah waved her along with encouragement. But not everyone appreciated Sarah's generosity. Just moments after the woman left, Mark Peterson, the center's manager, stormed over with his usual air of arrogance. "What do you think you're doing, giving away free passes?" he snapped, his voice dripping with disdain. Sarah's shoulders tensed, but she kept her tone calm. "I paid for it out of my own pocket. The kids needed a place to swim, and they weren't causing any harm." Mark scoffed, shaking his head. "This isn't a charity, Sarah. If you keep undermining me with your little handouts, you'll find yourself out of a job." He walked away before Sarah could respond, leaving her standing at the desk with a clenched jaw and eyes that glistened with frustration. Oliver's fists tightened around the mop handle as he took in the scene. Sarah's dedication to the community was clear, her kindness a stark contrast to Mark's rigid, revenue-driven mindset. She was exactly the kind of employee the center needed, someone who genuinely cared about the people she served. And yet, her efforts were being crushed under the weight of a manager who saw kindness as weakness. Oliver made a mental note to pay closer attention to Sarah. Whatever changes he planned to implement at Riverside Recreation Center, they would start with her. As Oliver continued his undercover work at Riverside Recreation Center, the extent of Mark Peterson's toxic leadership became glaringly obvious. Mark ran the center with a rigid, revenue-focused mindset, disregarding the community-centric values the chain was built upon. His management style was rooted in control and intimidation, with little regard for the well-being of the employees or guests. Oliver observed how Mark ignored important maintenance issues, shrugging off concerns from both the staff and patrons. When the air conditioning broke down in the fitness area during a heat wave, Mark brushed off complaints with a dismissive, "People need to toughen up, it's a gym, not a resort." Employees were left to face angry patrons, while Mark remained holed up in his office, scrolling through his phone or barking orders without ever lending a hand. Meetings were little more than opportunities for Mark to belittle the staff. He routinely interrupted, dismissed suggestions, and reprimanded anyone who dared to question his methods. Kevin, the maintenance supervisor, often bore the brunt of Mark's condescension, his work criticized regardless of effort or outcome. But Sarah seemed to receive the worst of it. Despite her efforts to assist guests and maintain a welcoming environment, Mark constantly undermined her decision. During one particularly busy afternoon, Sarah attempted to diffuse a conflict between 2 patrons, who had both reserved the same space for separate activities. Mark stormed over, accusing her of mishandling the situation before the guests' very eyes. "You can't keep screwing things up like this, Sarah. We have paying members to consider, not just every random person who walks in off the street," Mark snapped, his voice echoing across the lobby. Oliver watched as Sarah's composure cracked, her shoulders stiffening under the weight of Mark's hostility. It was clear that his leadership style fostered fear and resentment rather than teamwork and dedication. Even Kevin, who generally seemed indifferent, occasionally muttered complaints about Mark's abrasive nature. Staff members avoided Mark whenever possible, their faces tense whenever he entered a room. Worse still, Mark's disdain for community service extended to the patrons themselves. Guests who couldn't afford premium memberships were treated with indifference, their complaints often ignored or brushed aside. Programs intended for underprivileged children were slashed under the pretense of cost-cutting measures. Oliver felt his frustration mounting with each passing day. Mark's leadership wasn't just inefficient, it was actively damaging the center's mission. If Oliver wanted to restore Riverside Recreation Center to its true purpose, he would have to start by confronting its greatest obstacle, Mark Peterson. The breaking point came on a chaotic Saturday afternoon when Riverside Recreation Center was packed with families, fitness enthusiasts, and children excitedly running between activities. Oliver, still working under the guise of Evan, observed from his position near the gym entrance, his mop idle as he took in the mounting tension. Sarah was manning the front desk alone, handling registrations, membership renewals, and program inquiries simultaneously. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but her voice remained steady and kind. A man in a wheelchair approached, explaining that the accessible equipment in the fitness room wasn't functioning properly. Sarah assured him she would address it immediately and called over Kevin, who promised to look into it. Before Kevin could act, Mark Peterson stormed into the lobby, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife. "What's this about broken equipment?" Mark snapped, his gaze narrowing on Sarah as if she were the problem. Sarah explained the situation calmly, but Mark's expression only darkened. "We can't afford to cater to everyone's special needs," he growled, his voice loud enough for the man in the wheelchair to hear. "If it's broken, he'll just have to wait. This is a gym, not a hospital." The man's face fell, embarrassment and frustration mingling in his expression. Without another word, he turned and left the building. Oliver's fists clenched at his sides, his temper barely held in check. Mark's arrogance and outright disregard for the center's inclusive mission had crossed a line Oliver couldn't ignore. Sarah tried to intervene, her voice trembling but determined. "Mark, that man is a paying member. He has just as much right to be here as anyone else." Mark scoffed, his tone dripping with disdain. "You don't make the rules around here, Sarah, and if you keep pandering to every complaint, you'll end up losing your job." Oliver could see the hurt and frustration etched across Sarah's face, but she stood her ground, refusing to back down. Her dedication to the community was evident, and Oliver realized just how wrong it was for someone like Mark to hold a position of power over her. The incident was more than a simple clash of personalities. It was proof that Mark's leadership was actively harming the center's reputation and alienating the very people it was meant to serve. Oliver knew then that his time spent observing was over. It was time to take action, and Mark Peterson was about to face the consequences of his arrogance. The following morning, Oliver Grant arrived at Riverside Recreation Center, dressed sharply in a tailored suit and polished shoes, his professional demeanor a far cry from the ragged custodian disguise he had worn the previous week. As he stepped through the front doors, heads turned. Employees glanced up from their tasks, surprised by the sudden appearance of a man who exuded authority. Sarah, stationed at the front desk as usual, looked up and froze, her eyes widening with confusion as she recognized the man she knew as Evan. Before she could speak, Mark Peterson emerged from his office, his expression twisted into its usual irritation. "Can I help you?" he snapped, already sounding impatient. Oliver's gaze locked onto Mark, his voice calm but firm. "Yes, you can. My name is Oliver Grant, CEO of the recreation center chain you supposedly manage." The silence that followed was palpable. Sarah's jaw dropped, her expression a mixture of shock and disbelief. Kevin, who had been passing by with a stack of towels, nearly dropped them. Mark, however, simply stared, his brow furrowing as if trying to comprehend what he had just heard. "What kind of joke is this?" Mark scoffed, though his bravado seemed forced. "It's no joke," Oliver replied, his eyes narrowing. He pulled out his company ID, the official logo glinting under the fluorescent lights. "I've spent the last week working here, undercover, to see how things are truly being run. What I discovered is beyond unacceptable." Mark's shoulders stiffened, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an ally. No one came to his defense. "I was hired to run this place my way. You gave me the authority to enforce standards," Mark argued, his voice laced with desperation. "Enforcing standards," Oliver repeated, his tone laced with cold disbelief. "You've done nothing but demean your staff, alienate visitors, and turn this center into a hostile environment. I watched you humiliate Sarah in front of guests. I witnessed you dismiss someone with disabilities because you couldn't be bothered to address accessibility issues. And the maintenance problems? Completely ignored." "That's not leadership, Mark. That's negligence." Oliver's words cut through the room, leaving everyone frozen. Even Kevin, who often seemed indifferent to Mark's antics, looked uncomfortable. Mark's face paled, his confidence crumbling. I was just following corporate policy," he stammered, his voice now shaky and defensive. "Corporate policy," Oliver shot back. "If you'd bothered to read the company's mission statement, you'd know this center was built to serve the community, not just those who can afford premium memberships. Kindness, inclusivity, and respect are what we stand for. You've failed at all three." Mark's mouth opened as if to argue, but no words came. The truth of Oliver's accusation was undeniable, and for the first time since Oliver arrived, Mark looked genuinely afraid. Oliver Grant's voice remained calm, but his eyes blazed with determination as he continued addressing Mark Peterson in front of the stunned staff. "I've seen enough to know this center is being run to the ground by your arrogance and complete disregard for the people you're supposed to be serving," Oliver stated, his tone cutting through the silence like a blade. Mark's expression twisted between shock and anger, but he kept his mouth shut, seemingly at a loss for words. Sarah stood frozen behind the front desk, her gaze darting between Oliver and Mark, the truth of Oliver's identity still settling in. Kevin lingered near the locker room entrance, his posture tense, as if he expected a fight to break out at any moment. Oliver continued, "You've been given multiple opportunities to prove yourself as a capable leader, but instead you've driven away members, alienated the community, and mistreated your own employees. Ignoring maintenance issues, dismissing valid concerns, and belittling your staff are not signs of leadership. They're signs of failure." His voice rose just enough to command the attention of everyone within earshot. "I started this chain to create spaces where people feel welcome, supported, and respected. You've turned Riverside Recreation Center into the exact opposite." Mark's bravado cracked, his arms folding defensively across his chest. "I've been doing my job, keeping the place profitable, making sure the right kind of clients stick around," Mark retorted, his voice laced with desperation. "The right kind of clients?" Oliver echoed, his expression hardening. "You mean the wealthy ones, the ones you think deserve more attention than anyone else. But that's not how this place is supposed to work. We're here to serve the entire community regardless of their financial status or social standing." Mark's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Oliver took a step closer, his gaze never wavering. "You have two options," Oliver declared, his tone low and unyielding. "Option 1, you resign immediately. You'll receive a severance package and the opportunity to leave with whatever dignity you have left. Option 2, I terminate your employment, effective immediately, and your behavior will be reported to the board along with every complaint I've collected over the past week." Oliver let his words sink in, his expression unreadable. "If I hear even one more incident of you mistreating a guest or disrespecting an employee today, you'll be escorted out of this building before lunchtime." Mark's face went pale, the weight of Oliver's ultimatum settling heavily on his shoulders. His eyes flickered around the room, searching for anyone who might speak up in his defense. But the staff remained silent, their faces impassive, their loyalties clearly not aligned with him. Realizing he had no support, Mark exhaled sharply, his shoulders sagging in defeat. "Fine," he muttered, his voice stripped of its usual arrogance. "I'll resign. I'll have my letter on your desk before the end of the day." Oliver nodded once, his expression cool and controlled. "See that you do." With Mark Peterson's resignation confirmed, the air at Riverside Recreation Center felt noticeably lighter. Oliver could see the tension easing from the employees' shoulders, their expressions shifting from cautious disbelief to tentative relief. But there was still work to be done, and Oliver wasn't about to leave things unfinished. After Mark retreated to his office to prepare his resignation letter, Oliver approached the front desk, where Sarah Jennings stood, her posture rigid and eyes filled with uncertainty. "Can we talk in the conference room?" Oliver asked gently, his tone far warmer than the one he had used with Mark. Sarah nodded hesitantly, leading him into the small, glass-walled room where so many of Mark's condescending meetings had taken place. Once the door was closed, Oliver wasted no time getting to the point. "Sarah, I owe you an apology," he began, his voice sincere. "I allowed someone like Mark to run this center unchecked for far too long, and from what I've seen, you've been doing everything you can to keep things running smoothly despite his interference." Sarah's cheeks flushed with a mix of embarrassment and gratitude. "I was just doing my job," she said quietly. Oliver shook his head. "No, you were doing more than your job. You've been providing genuine care and support to the community members who rely on this place. I've watched you deal with difficult situations with kindness and professionalism. That's exactly the kind of leadership this center needs." Sarah's eyes widened, clearly not expecting praise from the man she only recently discovered was the CEO. Oliver continued, "Mark's absence leaves a significant gap, but I think you're more than capable of filling it. I'd like to offer you the position of assistant manager. You'll have the authority to oversee community programs, improve guest interactions, and ensure the center remains accessible and welcoming to everyone." Sarah's jaw dropped, her expression stunned. "Me? But I've never managed anything before," she stammered. Oliver smiled. "You've been managing more than you realize. It's just that no one gave you the recognition or the authority you deserved. I'm giving you that chance now." Sarah's eyes glistened, her voice thick with emotion as she finally spoke. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Oliver nodded, satisfaction settling in his chest. "I know you won't. And I'll be here to support you every step of the way." The promotion wasn't just about filling a vacant role. It was about nurturing the potential of someone who truly understood the center's purpose. Oliver knew that Sarah's kindness and dedication would help transform Riverside Recreation Center into the welcoming community space it was always meant to be. With Mark Peterson officially gone and Sarah Jennings promoted to assistant manager, Oliver wasted no time initiating the cultural overhaul that Riverside Recreation Center so desperately needed. The first order of business was a staff meeting, one where every voice would be heard. Oliver gathered the entire team in the conference room, the same space Mark had once used to berate and belittle them. This time the atmosphere was different. Oliver stood at the front, his demeanor calm but commanding. "From now on, things will be different around here," he began, his gaze sweeping across the room. "This center was built to serve the community, and that includes everyone, whether they can afford a premium membership or not. Inclusivity, respect, and support aren't just words on our mission statement, they're our foundation." The employees listened intently, their skepticism slowly melting into cautious optimism. Sarah sat beside Oliver, her expression nervous but determined. Her promotion had been announced at the start of the meeting, prompting surprised but approving murmurs from her colleagues. Oliver continued, outlining a three-part plan aimed at revitalizing the center's environment. First, proper training would be implemented to ensure employees were equipped to handle both their tasks and unexpected challenges. Second, maintenance issues would no longer be ignored or brushed aside. Every concern would be documented, addressed, and resolved promptly. Third, employee feedback would be actively encouraged, with monthly staff meetings designed to foster open dialogue and collaboration. "We're also going to reinvest in the community programs that have been neglected for too long," Oliver added. "That means rebuilding relationships with local schools, senior centers, and organizations that provide services to those who need them most." As he spoke, Oliver made sure to emphasize Sarah's new role, making it clear that she would be instrumental in implementing these changes. "Sarah has shown true leadership and dedication, qualities this place needs. I trust her to guide you all, and I'll be here to support her every step of the way." The employees exchanged glances, their expressions brightening with the possibility of genuine change. Even Kevin, who had often seemed indifferent, nodded along with the plan. Oliver's approach wasn't just about replacing a bad manager. It was about rebuilding a culture rooted in kindness, collaboration, and accountability. As the meeting concluded, Oliver encouraged everyone to share their thoughts and concerns. For the first time, the staff felt like their voices truly mattered, and for Oliver, that was the most important change of all. Weeks later, Riverside Recreation Center had transformed into a place that finally lived up to its name. Oliver returned to the center unannounced, preferring to observe the changes without any pretense of authority. As he walked through the bustling lobby, he noted the relaxed, friendly atmosphere that had replaced the tension and frustration he'd encountered before. Staff members moved with purpose and enthusiasm, their interactions with guests genuine and welcoming. Gone were the days of dismissive glances and irritated scolding. Now, the employees worked as a cohesive team, inspired by the improvements Oliver had initiated and Sarah had implemented. Sarah had taken to her role as assistant manager with the same dedication and kindness that had impressed Oliver from the start. She streamlined operations, ensuring that maintenance requests were addressed promptly and programs ran smoothly. Her first major initiative had been to reintroduce the free youth swimming program, which Mark had discontinued under the guise of budget cuts. Sarah also implemented accessible fitness options for members with disabilities, making sure everyone felt welcomed and supported. Her efforts were met with overwhelming gratitude from the community, many of whom expressed their appreciation directly to Oliver when they recognized him during his visit. Oliver watched with pride as Sarah guided a group of new employees through an orientation session, her voice steady and encouraging. Even Kevin, who had once seemed indifferent to the center's well-being, now showed renewed interest in his work. He actively participated in meetings, offering suggestions and helping Sarah with facility improvements. The entire staff seemed invigorated by the positive changes, their morale higher than it had been in years. It was proof that good leadership could inspire even the most jaded employees to care. Satisfied, Oliver made his way to the front desk, where Sarah was finishing up a conversation with a guest. She glanced up and smiled when she saw him. "Oliver, I didn't expect you today," she said, her tone warm and confident. "Just wanted to see how things were going," Oliver replied. "And from what I can see, you're doing an incredible job." Sarah's cheeks flushed with pride, but she remained humble. "It's a team effort. I couldn't have done it without everyone's support." Oliver nodded, his smile genuine. That's what leadership is all about, empowering others to be their best. As he left the center, Oliver knew that Riverside Recreation Center was finally fulfilling its purpose, and with Sarah at the helm, its future had never looked brighter. The story of Riverside Recreation Center teaches a valuable lesson about leadership, integrity, and the power of inclusivity. Oliver Grant's decision to go undercover highlights how effective leadership requires first-hand understanding and genuine engagement with employees and patrons alike. His experience reveals the destructive nature of toxic management and the importance of fostering a culture rooted in respect, compassion, and accountability. By replacing Mark Peterson, a dismissive, revenue-driven manager, with Sarah Jennings, a kind and dedicated employee who genuinely cares about the community, Oliver demonstrates that true leadership is about empowering others, not controlling them. Sarah's promotion to assistant manager symbolizes the importance of recognizing and nurturing potential where it exists, even if it has been previously overlooked. Oliver's approach to rebuilding the center from the ground up also emphasizes the significance of listening to feedback, valuing employees' contributions, and ensuring that everyone feels heard and respected. In the end, the center's transformation proves that positive change starts with empathy and dedication. When leaders focus on supporting and uplifting their teams, success follows naturally. Oliver's journey serves as a powerful reminder that great leadership isn't about authority, it's about inspiring and empowering others to reach their fullest potential.